You have to go to war with your mind because your mind will either become your greatest weapon or your most dangerous enemy. Every limitation you feel, every excuse that whispers for comfort, every fear that tells you to wait is born there first. Nothing outside of you has power until your mind gives it permission. And the moment you decide to take control of that battlefield, your entire life begins to change. Your mind is designed to protect you, not to push you. It wants what is familiar, easy, and safe. But growth lives on the other side of comfort. So when you feel resistance, when doubt shows up, when fear starts negotiating with you, that is not a sign to stop. That is the signal that you are standing at the edge of transformation. War begins when you refuse to obey the first negative thought that enters your head. Most people don't fail because they lack ability. They fail because they believe the lies their mind repeats under pressure. I'm not ready. It's too late. What if I fail? These thoughts feel real, but they are not facts. They are habits, and habits can be broken. Going to war with your mind means questioning every thought that weakens you and replacing it with one that empowers you. You don't wait to feel strong. You decide to act strong and your mind follows. Discipline is one of your most powerful weapons. Motivation comes and goes, but discipline stays. When your mind tells you to quit, discipline tells you to keep moving. When emotions fluctuate, discipline holds the line. Each time you do what you said you would do, even when you don't feel like it, you win a small battle. And small wins build unshakable confidence. You also have to control what you focus on. Whatever you focus on grows. If you focus on problems, you feel powerless. If you focus on solutions, you feel capable. Your mind cannot hold fear and purpose at the same time. When you give your mind a clear mission, fear loses its grip. Purpose silences noise. Direction creates strength. Going to war with your mind also means mastering your emotional state. You are not your emotions, you experience them. You can feel fear and still move forward. You can feel tired and still take action. Power is not the absence of emotion, it is the ability to choose your response. When you stop letting emotions dictate your behavior, you take control of your future. This war is not fought once, it is fought daily. Every morning you choose who is in charge. Every decision is a vote for the person you are becoming. When you consistently choose growth over comfort, action over excuses, and belief over doubt, your mind becomes trained to support you instead of sabotage you. The strongest people are not those without negative thoughts. They are the ones who refuse to be ruled by them. When you win the war in your mind, nothing outside of you can stop you. Because the moment your mind is aligned with your purpose, your actions become unstoppable. Your mind can be your greatest weapon or your biggest enemy. And the difference between the two is not intelligence, talent, or luck, but control. Every action you take begins as a thought. Every fear you feel starts as an idea. Every breakthrough you experience is first imagined before it becomes real. This means the battlefield of your life is not outside of you, it is inside you. If you do not learn to command your mind, it will command you, and it will rarely lead you where you truly want to go. The mind is powerful because it is persuasive. It speaks in your own voice, using familiar language, emotions, and memories. When it tells you that you are tired, unprepared, or incapable, it feels true. But feelings are not facts. The mind's job is not to make you successful. It is to keep you comfortable and safe. Comfort, however, is often the enemy of growth. When you allow your mind to dictate your limits, it becomes an enemy that quietly sabotages your potential. As a weapon, the mind is unstoppable. When trained, it sharpens. Focus fuels discipline and strengthens resilience. It allows you to see opportunities where others see obstacles. It helps you remain calm under pressure and decisive in uncertainty. A trained mind does not panic when things go wrong, it adapts. It does not collapse under failure, it learns. It does not wait for perfect conditions, it creates momentum through action. As an enemy, the mind is subtle and dangerous. It does not attack loudly, it whispers excuses, it encourages delay, it magnifies fear and minimizes capability. It convinces you that tomorrow is a better time, that someone else is more qualified, that the risk is too great. Over time, these thoughts become habits, and habits become identity. Without intervention, the mind builds a prison that looks like logic but feels like limitation. The key difference between a weapon and an enemy is direction. A weapon is aimed with intention. An enemy acts without your consent. When you consciously choose your thoughts, your mind becomes an instrument of progress. When thoughts run unchecked, they control behavior. Awareness is the first step to reclaiming power. The moment you notice a thought that weakens you, you create space to challenge it. In that space, choice exists, and where choice exists, power returns. Training the mind requires repetition. You do not win this battle once, you win it daily. Each time you replace a Negative assumption with a constructive one, you strengthen mental discipline. Each time you act despite fear, you prove that fear does not decide your future. Over time, your mind learns to support action instead of resisting it. What once felt like struggle becomes second nature. Focus is another critical factor. The mind amplifies whatever it dwells on. If you focus on problems, it produces anxiety. If you focus on solutions, it produces confidence. If you focus on past failures, it generates doubt. If you focus on future possibilities, it generates drive. The mind does not judge what you feed it, it multiplies it. Choosing focus is choosing direction. Emotional control also determines whether the mind is a weapon or an enemy. Emotions are powerful signals, but they are poor leaders. When emotions dictate decisions, reactions replace strategy. When emotions are acknowledged but not obeyed, clarity emerges. A strong mind allows emotion to exist without surrendering control to it. This balance creates inner stability even in chaos. Ultimately, mastering the mind is about identity. You become what you repeatedly tell yourself and repeatedly do. If you see your mind as something to fear, it will dominate you. If you see it as something to train, it will serve you. The same mind that once held you back can become the force that propels you forward. Your mind is never neutral. It is either building your future or protecting your comfort. When you take responsibility for your thoughts, discipline your focus, and act with intention, your mind becomes your greatest weapon. And once that happens, no external obstacle can stop you, because the strongest force driving your life is finally working for you, not against you. Growth begins the moment you challenge limiting thoughts instead of obeying them, because the thoughts that hold you back are rarely true. They are simply familiar. Limiting thoughts feel convincing because they have been repeated for years. They sound reasonable, protective, and logical. They say things like, "This is just how I am, I'm not ready yet," or "It's too risky." These thoughts don't scream, they whisper. And because they whisper in your own voice, you believe them. The instant you stop obeying them and start questioning them, growth starts. Most people never question their thoughts. They assume that every thought is a fact, every doubt is wisdom, and every fear is a warning. But thoughts are suggestions, not commands. Just because a thought appears does not mean it deserves obedience. Challenging a limiting thought means pausing long enough to ask, is this true? Is this useful? Is this helping me become who I want to be? That pause is powerful. It creates distance between you and the thought, and in that distance, freedom exists. Limiting thoughts are designed to keep you safe, not strong. They are rooted in past experiences, failures, or conditioning. At some point, they may have protected you from embarrassment, rejection, or disappointment. But what once protected you can later imprison you. Growth requires new behavior, and new behavior requires new thinking. You cannot build a bigger life using thoughts designed for a smaller one. When you challenge a limiting thought, you weaken its authority. The thought may still appear, but it no longer controls your actions. For example, fear may say, "You might fail." Challenging that thought doesn't require you to eliminate fear, it requires you to act anyway. Action proves what logic cannot. Each time you move forward, despite doubt, you collect evidence that you are more capable than your thoughts suggest. That evidence builds confidence, and confidence rewrites belief. Obedience to limiting thoughts creates stagnation. Challenging them creates momentum. The first challenge is uncomfortable because it breaks a familiar pattern. Comfort lies in predictability, even when predictability keeps you stuck. Growth demands discomfort because it requires stepping into the unknown. The unknown triggers limiting thoughts, but those thoughts are not signs to stop. They are signs that growth is near. Challenging thoughts also shifts responsibility back to you. When you obey limiting beliefs, you give away power. You blame circumstances, timing, or other people. When you challenge them, you reclaim control. You realize that while you cannot control every outcome, you can always control your response. This realization is empowering. It moves you from victimhood to ownership, from reaction to intention. Another key aspect of growth is repetition. Challenging a thought once is not enough. Limiting beliefs are habits, and habits are broken through consistency. Each time a familiar doubt arises and you respond differently, you weaken the neural pattern that supports it. Over time, new thoughts become automatic. Courage replaces hesitation. Curiosity replaces fear. Possibility replaces limitation. Challenging thoughts also sharpens awareness. You begin to notice patterns in your thinking. You see how often fear exaggerates risk and minimizes capability. You notice how the mind prefers certainty over progress. This awareness alone accelerates growth because it allows you to choose thoughts consciously instead of absorbing them unconsciously. Growth is not about becoming fearless, it is about becoming decisive. Fear may always exist, but it does not need to lead. Challenging limiting thoughts teaches you to coexist with discomfort without letting it control you. You stop waiting to feel confident and start building confidence through action. You stop waiting for permission and start giving it to yourself. Ultimately, growth begai. The moment you stop treating your thoughts as truth and start treating them as tools, some thoughts build, others destroy. Some empower, others restrict. You decide which ones to use. When you challenge limiting thoughts instead of obeying them, you expand your world. Possibilities multiply. Action becomes easier, and the person you are capable of becoming finally gets the space to emerge. Discipline defeats doubt when motivation fades because discipline does not depend on how you feel in the moment. Motivation is emotional, temporary, and unpredictable. It rises when things are exciting and disappears when things become difficult, repetitive, or uncomfortable. Doubt, on the other hand, thrives in those quiet moments when motivation is gone. That is where discipline steps in as the deciding force. Discipline keeps you moving forward when emotions are unreliable and confidence feels distant. Doubt often appears disguised as logic. It sounds reasonable. It tells you to rest longer, wait for better timing, or stop because progress feels slow. When motivation is high, doubt is quiet. But when motivation fades, doubt gets louder. If motivation is your only driver, doubt will eventually win. Discipline does not argue with doubt. It ignores it. Discipline says, this is what I do, not this is how I feel. That identity-based action is what makes discipline so powerful. Discipline is built through commitment, not intensity. Anyone can act when they feel inspired. Very few people act when they feel tired, bored, or uncertain. Discipline is the ability to keep promises to yourself regardless of mood. Each time you follow through without motivation, you strengthen self-trust. That trust becomes confidence, and confidence weakens doubt over time. Doubt loses its power when it repeatedly fails to stop you. Motivation asks for conditions to be perfect. Discipline creates peace. Progress in imperfect conditions. Motivation wants excitement and visible results. Discipline is comfortable with routine and delayed rewards. This is why discipline outlasts doubt. Doubt feeds on uncertainty and lack of immediate feedback. Discipline understands that results are built quietly, through repetition and consistency long before they are visible. When motivation fades, many people stop and wait for it to return. Discipline does not wait. Discipline moves first and lets motivation catch up later. Action often restores motivation, not the other way around. When you act, despite doubt, your brain receives new evidence that you are capable and committed. That evidence reduces hesitation and rebuilds momentum. Discipline creates its own motivation through progress. Discipline also simplifies decision-making. Doubt creates mental chaos by forcing you to debate every step. Should you continue? Should you quit? Should you change direction? Discipline removes debate. It turns decisions into habits. When action is habitual, doubt has no space to negotiate. You do the work because it is who you are, not because you feel inspired. Another reason discipline defeats doubt is because it strengthens emotional resilience. Motivation is fragile because it relies on positive emotions. Discipline works even when emotions are negative or neutral. It allows you to feel tired, unsure, or discouraged without being controlled by those feelings. This emotional separation is a form of strength. You stop identifying with temporary states and start identifying with long-term standards. Discipline also compounds over time. One disciplined action may seem insignificant, but repeated daily, it creates massive results. Doubt focuses on the size of the task and exaggerates difficulty. Discipline focuses on the next step only. By breaking progress into manageable actions, discipline makes consistency possible. Over time, consistency builds mastery, and mastery leaves little room for doubt. Importantly, discipline is not punishment. It is self-respect in action. It is choosing your future over your comfort. Each disciplined choice reinforces the belief that you are reliable, capable, and in control of your direction. Doubt thrives when you break promises to yourself. Discipline destroys doubt by keeping those promises, especially when it is hard. In the end, motivation may start the journey, but discipline finishes it. Doubt will always appear when the path gets quiet and progress feels slow. Discipline is what carries you through those moments. When you act without motivation, you prove that doubt does not decide your future. And once that truth is established, discipline becomes your advantage, your stability, and your edge when others stop. Focus determines whether fear or purpose controls your actions because the mind cannot fully commit to both at the same time. Whatever you consistently focus on becomes the lens through which you interpret your experiences. If your attention is fixed on what could go wrong, fear takes the lead. If your attention is directed toward what you are trying to build, purpose steps forward. The difference is not the absence of fear, but the presence of direction. Fear grows in scattered attention. When your focus jumps from problem to problem, from opinion to opinion, the mind becomes overwhelmed. In that state, uncertainty feels threatening and hesitation feels safer than action. Fear feeds on imagined outcomes and unresolved questions. Purpose, on the other hand, thrives in clarity. When your focus is anchored to a clear intention, fear loses its power to distract. You may still feel it, but it no longer dictates behavior. Focus acts as a filter. Every day you are exposed to thousands of stimuli, news, conversati, ons, comparisons, and internal thoughts. Without intentional focus, these inputs pull you in every direction. Fear often enters through comparison and speculation. You compare your progress to others, imagine judgment, or anticipate failure. Purpose enters through alignment. When you focus on your values, goals, and reasons, external noise fades. You stop reacting to distractions and start responding to what matters. When fear controls focus, actions become defensive. You play small. You avoid risks. You delay decisions. Your energy goes into protecting yourself rather than progressing. When purpose controls focus, actions become deliberate. You take calculated risks. You move forward despite uncertainty. Your energy is invested in growth rather than self-protection. The same situation can produce completely different outcomes depending on where focus is placed. Focus also shapes emotional state. Fear-focused attention magnifies threats and reduces confidence. Purpose-focused attention highlights progress, learning, and opportunity. Emotions follow attention. When you focus on problems, stress increases. When you focus on solutions, confidence grows. This emotional shift directly influences behavior. Calm, purpose-driven states encourage decisive action. Anxious, fear-driven states encourage hesitation. Another critical aspect of focus is repetition. What you focus on repeatedly becomes habitual. If fear dominates attention long enough, it becomes the default response. If purpose dominates attention consistently, courage becomes automatic. Focus is trained through repetition. Each time you redirect your attention from worry to intention, you strengthen mental control. Over time, this redirection becomes natural, allowing purpose to guide actions even under pressure. Focus also determines how you interpret setbacks. Fear-focused thinking interprets setbacks as confirmation of failure. Purpose-focused thinking interprets them as feedback. The event is the same, the meaning is different. Meaning shapes response. When fear assigns meaning, withdrawal follows. When purpose assigns meaning, adaptation follows. This distinction determines whether you stop or continue. Purpose-driven focus does not eliminate fear, but it puts fear in its place. Fear becomes information, not instruction. It alerts you to risks without paralyzing you. Purpose decides what to do with that information. This balance creates controlled action rather than reckless or frozen behavior. Ultimately, focus is a choice, even when it doesn't feel like one. You cannot always control what thoughts appear, but you can control which ones you engage. By consciously directing focus toward purpose, you reclaim authority over your actions. Fear may knock, but it does not enter unless focus invites it. When focus is aligned with purpose, actions become intentional, consistent, and powerful. That alignment is what separates hesitation from progress and potential from achievement.